this works out. So let's see if this works out. So you can listen on both the Spreaker app, or you can listen on the video. You can just hit play on the video to the right and you should see me. And if you want, you could listen to it just audio, then you don't have to look at my face and everything will be good. So today Lenny's taking the day off, much needed day off, and I will be filling in for him. And we are going to use this opportunity to talk about some Strat-o-matic, to talk about an article that came out by Ken Rosenthal yesterday, talking about when the possibility of the baseball season starting, and also yeah, so that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to talk about today. Say hello in the chat room if you can hear me or see me. Sound, that's what I'm looking for, some sound. Hopefully I can get this Zoom to work with Spreaker, because as we're speaking now, I have had to take the video, strip the audio, upload it to Spreaker so that we could send it out to all of the podcasting hosts. And okay, great. Thanks, Taco. So, as I said before, okay, good. Sound is good. Video is good. I'm wearing my red shirt today, Trevor Bauer. They don't have any Trevor Bauer shirts yet, but I'm sure they will eventually. So I would love to start. First of all, let me say this. Yesterday, I reached out to a couple people about the plumbing, because the other day I was taking a shower and like the hot water wouldn't shut off. Literally, it would not shut off. It was leaking like a little bit before that, and I had replaced the stem in the plumbing and the pipes in the shower. I had replaced it before a couple years ago, and um, the thing is that like it takes a specific stem that is made for these two handle showers, and they don't really make two handle showers anymore with hot and cold on opposite sides. And the stem that I needed is unique, and so I think that this applies to a lot of different, in general, if this happens to anybody, there's the stem that they need for their shower is totally unique. So you can't just like go and find a universal stem for the shower, and it wears out over time. And this one particularly wears out quickly, like especially with hot water. But to make a long story short, I reached out to a couple people yesterday, and I have to say, like, I appreciate so much how people are willing to just, go out of their way to help if they can. And even if they can't, they try to, they make an effort to come up with something. And so, of course, it's like, go to YouTube, that's your friend. I'm like, I'm the queen of YouTube. I have done so much just based off YouTube videos, watching and learning. And I absolutely appreciate YouTube, but I could not find the answer to what I needed on YouTube. So I reach out to King Hap and I say to King Hap, for some reason it struck me. I'm like, I think King Hap knows a plumber. I remember somebody saying that they were a plumber, that it was just like a chance that maybe it's true. It was just like, I thought for sure that I remembered somebody in the King Hap chat room talking about being a plumber. And I was like, ooh, okay, remember that. Anyway, I reach out to King Hap and I tell him, do you know any plumbers, or do you know do you know anything about plumbing? And I mean, the response that I got was just so, it was so, it made me feel so good, because here's a person that we met through the chat room that does a show at our website, but just the people are so good. And just the people that we've met by doing Lenny's podcast and by having the website and putting the work in, we have met some of the nicest, most great friends that we would have never met otherwise. And I just want to say thank you to King Hap, to Beantown Bad Boy, who called me when he was working between buildings. He's a handyman. He was able to answer the question that I had, even though I had already been to 3 Home Depots, because they say online that they have a part, which they don't have. 2 different ones. The first one I went to, we have to wait in line outside, and they're only allowing so many people inside their store, which is fine. Everybody has to wear a mask. And all, of course, when you go to check out, you can check out self checkout or you can check out with a human, but the human is obviously behind glass. So everybody's wearing a mask. I have my alcohol wipes, I have like my Lysol in my purse, I have gloves. And so it's like New York is different than any other state right now. And so it's mentally exhausting. Just first of all, when you haven't been out of the house in 2 months and you attempt to go out in public, there's like a mental fight that you have to go through just to go outside, just to like appear in public. It's like I haven't um gone outside in so long that it's like scary. The longer you go without being in public, the scarier it is to like go and be in public. So the first one, they didn't have it. They said online that they had it in stock. The second one, so while I was leaving the first store, I quickly got online and I was like, I'm going to order this part online and then I'll go pick it up. And that way, I know that nobody's going to take it off the shelf before I get there. So I do that and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm helping Phil get ready for his podcast. And I'm waiting and finally I'm like, I'm just gonna go in the store. I'm gonna run back there, grab the item, come up to the front, show it to them, and then leave the store. Of course, it's not there. They don't have it in stock. So I go up to the front and the lady says, "Well, you should call before you show up. If it says one in stock, of course you want to call." Well, I mean, I got to give Home Depot a little bit of leeway because I'm sure that at this point in time things are not as put together as typical. The inventory is probably a little off, and so what are you going to do? And then it closes at 8 o'clock, and I now have 45 minutes to get to the next Home Depot who says they have five in stock. Five. If I can't get this part, I'm like, I don't have any hot water. It would be one thing you can't take a shower, but another thing that you can't do dishes, you can't do laundry, and I'm not having a plumber in my house right now. Like, I am so against having somebody come into our house to fix stuff anyway. Like, I have a huge ego problem when it comes to that, and I refuse to like give up. And so we actually did hire a handyman named Ben who came and fixed our front door because we were going away out of town. I mean, I was literally about ready to take the door frame out, but the tool that I had didn't wasn't cutting through the screws. Um, so we had to call Ben, and Ben came over, he fixed the door, he was super nice, and I'm happy that I have Ben. But I gotta say, like, Beantown bad boy, this guy, he doesn't really know us that much. He doesn't have to take time. Plumbers get paid a couple $100 an hour. And the fact that he called me on the phone and he was very willing to help me out, it means so much to me. And I just want to say thank you to King Hap. Thank you to Beantown Bad Boy. Thank you for being our friends. I was thinking, like, God, those people in Boston are so nice. You base like a whole state, the people on who you actually run into. So like they're the face of that state. I'm not like it's just a random chance who you get to meet from that state. But I just got to say, like, the people from Boston have been so just nice, fun, uplifting, just love to talk sports. And I mean, I just gotta say, shout out, thank you so much, Hap. Thank you so much, Beantown Bad Boy, for helping me out. I have the answer to the question that I needed, and we have hot water. So everything's fixed on that respect. But let's talk about some Strat-o-matic, and I will check in with the chat room now as soon as I find it. One moment, please. Here we go. Morning, White Sox Al. Nice to see you today. Nice to see everybody. Not a lot of people. I don't know. DK Lush, J Man. Hey, what up, J Man? Lenny's here. Taco, Zelmo. I I was looking for you yesterday, Zelmo. He's a plumber too. So, but anyway, that's all fixed and life is good. So I would have loved to have had done this podcast like after a night that I actually did well in Strat-o-matic. But of course, um, George, who is very frustrated with his team at the moment, George nearly swept me. I did win one game by 1 point, one run, but George beat me the other two games. And in the other league, I got swept, right? I got swept by Phil. And it was Phil, Phil kind of joined this league in a quickness. Like I actually set up his team. I got him his teams, I set up his name, I did everything because he was at work and we were drafting that night, and Phil had not even studied, like, he was not, um, privy to how Strat-o-matic worked, and for the rest of us, like, well, at least for 6 of us, we had already done a Strat-o-matic draft, and we were already playing in a league, so we knew, kind of like what we needed to accomplish, and so when you're going into this, the second league that we have is, 12 teams, or yeah, I believe it's 12 teams. Um, a couple of the teams were playing in the other league with us. The other league is only 6 teams. It was our first league. So anyway, I got to give Phil, credit for his team, even though he swept me and it's not cool at all. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the differences between Roto and Stratomatic. And, there's a couple, like if you go out searching on Google, you'll find a couple really good articles about like some targets, pitching targets, hitting targets, and stuff like that. And the thing is that like some players, their prices are whack. It's like Kevin Pillar is like 5 million. That's really expensive for a player when you can get Trey Turner for like 4.5 million. And, I own Trey Turner in my first league, and I figured out why he's less than Kevin Pillar, and that is because he gets injured. He's currently injured for 14 days as we speak. But what do you do with these? This is how we learn as we go with this, Stratomatic. Like, what do you do with a guy that's injured for the next 2 weeks? Do you drop him? Because every time you drop somebody, and depending on the settings that you use, um, you have to pay a percentage of the value of the player. So, like right now, we're in the stage where it's 5%. So, if I drop Trey Turner, I only get back 95% of his value. And he's, but the good thing is that there's 3 games a night. So, a 14-day DL stint is only actually divide that by 3. So, it's like five full nights of him being on the DL. I have Miguel Sano. Like yesterday, he was going to be injured for the next 7 games. Right now, he's injured for the next 4 games. But is he worth keeping? Is he worth holding on to? Because his defense stinks and he isn't qualified at a lot of position. He's qualified at the corners. So some of these guys are very valuable, like because of the number of positions that they play. And you want to be able to move people around when somebody gets hurt. However, like I'm not pleased with John Birdie right now. I was super excited about him. He plays all over the place. He plays shortstop, center field, third base, left field, and right field. And this guy had not stolen a base. Oh, wait, look at him. He did steal some bases. He's stealing bases now. Just the other day I looked at him. I'm like, "What the hell? You're not stealing bases. You're not even trying to steal bases." That was when he had like 60 at bats. He hadn't even tried to steal a base. Now he has 109 at bats. So like 3 games each day, it quickly adds to player stats. And so anyway, I wanted to talk about some of the like I found 2 great articles at Baseball HQ about who to target, middle relievers and hitters. And so the thing about Stratomatic is that they're focused on skills that rotisserie is not focused on, which is um, like bullpen work, defense, and anyway, so starters, they're not going deep into games. Like you have to go into your preferences and you have to tell the game if you want a pitcher to stay in for a certain number of innings. Like I noticed that Gio Gonzalez was not going past the 3rd inning. He was dropped recently, so it made me want to look at his card. And luckily like I said, he was dropped. So the person that owned him, I think it was Bobby, he was so fed up with Gio. He was like, "This guy sucks. All he does is lose his game." And I go and I look at his game log. He's only going like 3 innings. So he's both a starting pitcher and a reliever. So if you don't tell Stratomatic that you want this pitcher to stay in for 5, 6, you have to tell it don't pull before the certain inning. Then this guy's only going to go for a couple innings and now you're stuck with like some bullpen guy. And the best reliever card in the entire 2000, we used 2019 stats. We used the stats from last year. That's the player card. So guys like Travis Shaw, who absolutely stunk it up last year, their player card is not worth jack. I actually own him on one of my teams, and his player card is junk because of the fact that he was junk last year. So basically, just to put that out there, we're using only 2019 stats in this. And let me tell you, there is not a lot of lefties bullpen guys. There's only 5 of the top 25 relievers throw left-handed. So the number one card for middle relievers in the set is Anthony Bass. Okay. He's a righty, but he's backwards because he's super good against left handed hitters. He allows base runners less than 4% of the time. And this guy is expensive, but he's worth more than, like, he's more valuable to own in Strat-o-matic than Josh Hader. Um, I know that's crazy to say. I said it on Sirius this last week when Lenny brought up Aaron Bummer, because Aaron Bummer is a left-handed pitcher. He's one of the 5 lefties in the top 25 middle relievers. But he's pretty much the same. It says that he's offers similar performance as Anthony Bass, but from the opposite side, and that makes him one of the game's most valuable commodities. It says also that because starters fail to go deep into games, um, relievers become more important than ever, and each team needs more relief innings. So they're much cheaper than starters. So if building a deep bullpen, especially with setup guys, remains the cheapest and easiest way to build a good pitching staff. These articles, I don't know if I mentioned this, are coming from Baseball HQ, which is a great resource if you can get the stuff there. Like, most of the stuff is not free, but these 2 articles are free. And so um George, yes, Big Joe is very good. Big Joe is one of Malpal's friends from high school. Like, they've been friends forever. He lives in LA, but he's been excellent. Oh, so George picks up Josh Hader after I dropped him. He's 4-0 for George with 5 saves and 4 blown saves. You just wait till he starts giving up some home runs, okay? Because I will read exactly what it says about Hader. I owned him first. I actually dropped him to pick up Anthony Bass, which is like cringing to do. It also talks about Seth Lugo, that he has, and the Mets really do believe that Seth Lugo is their best relief pitcher. Like, he might not be their closer, but he's their best reliever. And if you're a huge Mets fan, you already know that Seth Lugo is like he's a big commodity, for the Mets. They are super, they rely on him a lot. But he has provided at least 80 excellent balanced bullpen innings with the ability to retire a few batters in the closer situation. Pedro Baez, it talks about Pedro Baez, how he's kept the ball in the ballpark, resulting in great effectiveness. He has, like, his declining dom. When they speak of dom, it's dominance. It talks about dominance is K per 9 at Baseball HQ. So when I say dom, I mean K per 9. Rising fly ball causes future concern, but they value him highly this year because of last year's stats. So Giovanni Gallegos, he posted a 17% swinging strike rate and 65% first pitch strike, and 11.7 strikeouts per 9 innings. So the next 3 guys are Tyler Clippard, Ryan Presley, and Will Harris. Also, you have for extra valuable relievers, Zach Britton, Julio Urias, who I have in my starting rotation, but I don't know what I'm going to do with him. I really like him. I think that he's an excellent pitcher. Obviously, he's young. He doesn't have a lot of innings. So I wonder what's going to happen when all of a sudden he reaches his innings limit. Like, what do you do in order to say, like, I'm I'm kind of swaying towards the fact that I'm just gonna drop him when he hits his, innings, because I love using him as a starter. I love keeping him in there for 5 innings, or, and then having another reliever come in, and he does well, he does pretty well. He has some blowups, he's young, whatever, but Julio Urias is a future star. I just wonder, like, with, guys like Dinelson Lamet, what's gonna happen? I mean, Dinelson Lamet, his issues come through so much in this Strat-o-matic game. I owned him to start the season in the first Legends League that we did, and his innings will come into play, and his under the radar um problems start to shine through, like his walks, his home runs. Dinelson Lamet strikes out a ton of batters, and that's hard to look past. He throws the ball almost 100 miles an hour. That's hard to look past. But when you do, you see that he could very well have a serious problem with walks. If any of you remember Jonathan Sanchez, I just always think of Jonathan Sanchez when I think of a guy that can strike out a ton of batters, but who has a serious problem with walks. So, yeah, I mean, you got to look at a pitcher as a whole. And I just wonder what's going to happen to Urias. What's going to happen? I don't own Nelson Lamet anymore because his downside started coming through right away. Another thing about Strat-o-matic is like, how quick do you jump ship on some of these players? Because it's all based on roll of dice, which means that every single chance is a chance. It doesn't change the odds ever. So, like right now with Trey Turner on the DL for 14 days, does that help him? Like, does the game say Trey Turner's already spent 2 weeks on the DL, so he's only going to be injured for, let's say, a month in the season, or he's going to miss 2 months of the season, whatever it may be, whatever the player spent on the injured list last year, is he going to repeat that? Does it count towards his like time served? Basically, does it count towards time served? I don't think it does. I think that his chances of getting injured remain the same throughout the season, regardless of how much time he spent on the DL. So every time you roll the dice, it's like every time you roll the dice, it's the same chances, the same chances that you had the first time he went on the DL, which isn't that great. And that's why his price is low. Because Lord knows he's excellent at some things. He's got great defense. He runs a ton and these things, but every time you roll the dice, it's that much of a chance of him getting injured. And if you guys know in the chat room, that would be awesome. Amazins, you're doing excellent in the first league, and I think you're sweeping people left and right. Like yesterday, you swept me, and I was behind you. I was in second place, and now I'm in third place. But things change so quickly. I don't know how many games have we played in the first league, and how many games have we played in the second league. I would love to know. Um, so let's talk quick about Josh Hader. So it also, let me just say, it also talks about Liam Hendricks, Ken Giles as being excellent buys in Strat-o-matic. Ken Giles, we all know in fantasy, in real fantasy, Ken Giles is like one of the best values that you can get in a draft. And I think that like lately he's been moving up the draft boards, but for the most part, I could probably go through my leagues and tell you that I own him in like at least 4 or 5 leagues. And by the way, we're playing a new league. I don't Nick Ski, uh he does Rottweiler podcast here. He hasn't been doing a show for a while, but he still has access to do shows anytime he wants. He reached out and he said that his buddy was putting together a goat league, greatest of all time. And it's actually 10 teams, and we draft players. We pick a player between 1984 and current, so it's 1984 to 2019, and you pick that player and 1 year. So like you choose Pedro Martinez 1999, right? You choose A-Rod 2000 and whatever year he was the best. So we've done the first 5 rounds of that league, and the thing is that it's going to last 5 weeks, this draft. But as soon as it's done, it's over. And every Saturday we draft 5 rounds, and so it gives you time in between to look at the standings based on the rounds that we've done so far. Currently, I'm in second place after the first 5 rounds, which doesn't mean shit, by the way. I really wanted to draft a catcher, so I got Javi Lopez early. And the catchers, there's like 3 or 4 really good catchers, and then it falls off after that. But if you're looking for a guy that got 300 batting average and, was able to get 100 RBIs and 100 runs plus 35 or more homers in a season, you have to draft Piazza or Pudge. And I drafted Javi Lopez, or Joe Mauer is also in the mix, but Joe Mauer was nowhere near like these other 3 guys. So I'm learning a lot about the history. I feel like I'm getting smarter playing Strat-o-matic and playing these GOAT leagues, and the Craig Mish Out of the Park Baseball League is the same. It's the similar type setup as that. But let's talk about quickly Josh Hader. Beware of big names like Josh Hader, whose 1.8 home run per nine and 21% home run per fly ball makes his card a landmine. Watch out, George. I'm not kidding around. Hader allows few base runners and sports a 16.4 strikeout per nine and a 24% swinging strikes. But all of those homers create a roller coaster season with him as your closer. Have the guts to use him if you own him, George. But be aware, in any kind of home run park, he is going to disappoint you time after time. He's absolutely horrendous against left-handed batters. It doesn't say that like in his ERA, but look at his home runs against lefties. Do not pitch him against lefties. I mean, you do have the option to say, uh, stay away from lefties. Do not allow this guy to go up against lefties or righties. So, you can also name pitchers to your, like, if you want him to be the left-handed specialist or a right-handed specialist, you can name a mop-up guy, you can have like a setup guy. And so there's that. But I still have a team open. I know Phil has an extra team to play with. Amazins has another team. So if anybody wants to play Strat-o-matic, go ahead and reach out because I'm willing to play another league. I think it's really fun. Before we get into the hitters, though, I'd like to talk about this article that Ken Rosenthal wrote. It came out a couple hours before I woke up this morning at The Athletic. And we talk about when is baseball going to start. And so yesterday, Trevor Bauer mentioned something about July 1st. And that was interesting to me because uh, Trevor Plouffe actually mentioned something about baseball starting on July 1st. And I now know where they got this idea from because the other day, so this article is written by Ken Rosenthal, Evan Drellich, and Dennis Lynn. The Indians officials, they had a Zoom meeting, 70 people on this Zoom meeting. It was the organizational members. They estimated that the season would begin after a 3-week spring training. Spring training 2.0 is what they call it. They say that they're just coming. These are all hypotheticals. There's absolutely nothing set in stone or anything, but June 10th would be when spring training would supposedly start. That's Trevor Plouffe also said June 10th. June 10th and July 1st are the times being bantered around right now. The officials made it clear that the dates were just targets, that they are fully expected to change. They just wanted players to be prepared if the league meets all of the logistical challenges that are necessary to play. League and club officials remain confident that the sport will return in 2020, but a number of team executives were fretting on Tuesday over the possibility of outbreaks, especially in places that are not that much under control, such as Arizona, Texas, California, Florida. Like Florida and Arizona are two biggies. They're constantly being talked about in potential ways that we could start the season, but these two places are not like the poster boy for having the virus under control. And I just think that it would never work putting all the teams in Arizona and Florida. It would never work. Number one reason, because these players would have to be away from their families and the wives aren't having it. That's it. Bottom line, when a wife is not having it, it's impossible. So, it's perfect opportunity too to blame the wife right now. It's like, well, my wife won't let me go. Well, I don't blame her. You didn't sign up for this. And we were going to talk about this on Sirius, but it was like our producer kind of knocked the idea a little bit because he said that it just doesn't sound that good because the two sides on this are one of the sides, which would be like, look at the military. These people that are in the military, they're constantly putting their lives on the line. And these baseball players get paid so much money. So why can't they just make it happen? It's a couple months out of the season. If they have to be away from their family, do it for America. America needs baseball, blah, blah, blah. I think a lot of baseball players would do it. I really do. But it's a lot different in my opinion because when a baseball player signs a contract, they don't sign up for putting their, I guess technically we all put our lives on the line just leaving the house, but they don't sign up to put themselves in situations where they could die. Like, if they get this virus, they could die, and chances are good they won't. But, you know, when you're somebody's wife at home and you're about ready to have a baby, I know there's a couple uh, players that have wives who are expecting, and Garrett Cole is one of them. And it's any, regardless, it's not going to happen for Texas and Arizona. So why not have them? The current idea, I think, that's being floated around is that they will have 3 divisions instead of 6 divisions. They'll have 3 divisions, and they'll change the playoff schedule, but you'll only play a, teams that are local, like local meaning Red Sox, Yankees, Toronto Yankees, West Coast, Middle America, and East Coast, I think would be the divisions. And you would play a lot of games near home. So it would make it a lot more feasible. And look, we are coming along. I understand that we're quite a ways away from completely curing this virus or coming up with any vaccine, but we're right on the verge of coming up with treatments. We're right on the verge of coming up with, because we're forced to. Like, this is a matter of life or death. Basically, like, we have to come up with some way to treat it, or life will not be the same. And people, there's going outside and catching the virus is risky, but being inside and losing your livelihood and losing your home and losing your uh financial security that you've worked so hard for, that there's something to that. So the sooner that we can, I will say this, South Korea is playing right now, the KBO, that you can go to RotoWire and get stats for it. You can go to The Athletic, you can go to ESPN. They're actually showing the KBO games, which I love. But South Korea has been able to keep this thing in check. And the way that they do that is by wearing masks, by taking temperatures. In the airports, they have, if all they have to do is push a button, and now they're in emergency, like, protection mode, the entire country, where you're walking through the airport, they have places that you walk through, and it automatically senses your body temperature. And so they were able to keep this virus from getting out of control just by, if somebody walks through the airport about ready to come, get off the plane and walk into their city or their town, they know if this person is about ready to spread this virus, so they're able to keep it under control. They've dealt with this type of thing before. I surely hope that we have better things in place, better safety measures in place than we did. By cutting off travel to China is one thing, but what about all the people coming in from Europe who were in China, went to Europe, or Italy or France or Germany or wherever, and then came here? That's where we went wrong. But hopefully we can learn from this. We can come up with better, we're going to have to change our ways. We're going to have to come up with better ways. Like, I find myself at the dumpster taking out the garbage, and now I'm like, I don't want to touch the lid. I don't want to touch the side thing that slides open. I don't want to touch it. And when I do, I'm more aware of, like, what could be on that, what I could contract. The more things you touch, you're going to touch your face. There's no way around it. You're going to touch your face, even if you don't think you're touching your face, you're touching your face. So the best thing to do is to keep your hands clean, and, just, I think our habits will change for sure. Baseball's going to be forced into making some changes that they wouldn't have had the balls to do otherwise, like a pitch clock, right? They wanted to put a pitch clock in for a long time. They wanted to help the pace of play, and the pitch clock is not happening because the Players Association is not having it. So this is like an opportunity for baseball to do the pitch clock, to put a DH in both leagues, which should have happened a long time ago anyways, and never look back. Just never go back, because people find it so hard to make changes to something that they're used to, that way of being, and there's always going to be people that hate change. That's just the way it is. But if you're forced into it and now you have the opportunity to implement it, why not keep it? The DH thing is an excellent idea. So moving on, it talks about the league's goal is open to as many home cities as possible, and that would be more convenient for the players than out of town parks. But they are talking about putting spring training at their own home ballpark instead of having everybody go back to Florida and Arizona, which I think is excellent. Even without fans, baseball coming back would be a positive, in my opinion. Although I say, like, they don't have fans in South Korea. Things are a lot different there, but they're playing baseball and they haven't had any kind of crazy sicknesses yet. Although it does take a couple weeks for this thing to start, like, showing its ugly head. Um, Still, I think about it like if you're allowed to go to Home Depot, you're allowed to go to the grocery store because you have to, and that there's ways to keep social distancing while you're out. I figured this out yesterday. Like they do have lines that you have to stand on when you're in line to get into the store or to check out. They have spots. They're 6 feet apart. There's stickers on the ground that tells you where you need to stand. And it. I think that ballparks are so huge. It's not like they're selling out anyways for the most part. I don't know if fans will come to games, especially in places like New York. I don't know if they'll come even if they have a chance to go, but I will go because I do believe that social distancing can happen at the ballparks. I don't see why you can't take somebody's temperature while they're walking into the gate, just like they do everywhere else right now. Those forehead temperatures, just put it up there and be like, okay, you don't have a fever, come on in. Now you're in the ballpark, you have your mask. You don't have anybody. I would love it because I hate having people sitting super close to me. I don't want people sitting super close to me. I would rather sit in the third level, okay, on the aisle. I would rather have bad seats than sitting scrunched up behind home plate. I don't like to go to the movies because I don't like people crowded around me. And so for me, it's no problem. But honestly, what's the big deal? It's super doable to maintain social distancing at ballparks, especially if they're only selling a third of the seats. So let's talk about that. Let's try to get it done. But even without fans, I believe baseball is going to start, even if it's only just based on the money. Okay. Rob Manfred, it says the stakes are enormous for Commissioner Rob Manfred, who remains clear that health will be the number one consideration as baseball plots its course. The league will follow the lead of its medical experts, knowing that a serious illness or death would not only be a terrible tragedy, but a poor reflection on the sport. Okay. The need to shut down the game after it had resumed would present its own issues, but with so much unknown, Manfred is taking a chance with whatever decision he makes. Whatever. Manfred, I have no respect for him. I have none. He's worse than the last guy that was the commissioner, who was not good either. Okay. So, anyway, they say that Associate Professor of Public Health Andrew Neumer at the University of California, Irvine, told The Times, if you include New York, it looks like a plateau moving down. If you exclude New York, it's a plateau slowly moving up. The next 3 weeks then are critical for baseball. If the virus erupts in enough places, the league might need to rethink any possibility of starting spring training in early June and the season in early July. The threat of a second wave hitting in the fall might leave the sport even less room to maneuver. But football's going to happen. Football is not having it. They're not losing money because they're greedy as any sport. Football is the most greedy of all the sports. So they're planning on starting their season. They're planning on having their spring training, whatever they call it. Combine, I don't know what it's called. But the greater availability of testing is a must, and that we're having right now. I was talking to a friend of mine. Actually, it was Lou. I was talking to Lou Landers yesterday. He lives in California, in Los Angeles, and we were talking about, whether or not it's peaked in California. We don't know that. It's still like slowly moving up, but slowly, like California has beaten every projection model there was, and it will never be as bad as New York because people in New York live right on top of each other and it's impossible to social distance. Plus, it was completely spread before we shut down New York City. And in California, they've been on lockdown since March 19th and they have slowly, every day they have like 70 people die, which I mean, God, just saying like they only have 70 die a day, that's horrible. But if you in comparison, it's absolutely in stark contrast with what New York was going through, which by the way, New York City, I keep track every day. It is really going down. It's down to like 100 a day. We were over 1,000 deaths a day for like a week and a half. It was over 1,000 a day. And it was really dismal here for a while. And I see the light at the end of the tunnel. I see that the resources are not being taken up. And California's been doing an excellent job. A vaccine is not going to be ready for this in time for this season, maybe not even next season, but The development of medicines to effectively treat this virus would reduce health risks, and if the numbers trend in the right direction, the sport might push forward with a shortened season and adjust as warranted. Adjustments are going to have to be made no matter what. So, um, the reality is we don't know what's going to happen over the next 5 months. I would guess there are things that aren't going to go the way that we plan. Our ability to adapt is going to be very important. Perspective is important. Walking around thinking that there's not going to be any baseball, it's going to be the end of the, like, there's just no hope. That's a horrible way to look at it. I say, even if it is, like, I'm a big fan of like reality, and I don't think that the truth is always pretty. And I think that there comes a time where you have to say to yourself, like, as much as I want baseball, maybe it's not going to happen. I'm not there yet. I'm just not there yet. I just don't think that's the case. So here's the one thing that I found very interesting. Probably the only real thing that I learned out of this article that Ken Rosenthal put out is the fact that the players have already agreed to prorate their salaries, right? We already know that even if there's no baseball, they're still going to get a season worth of like it's going to a season, what is it called? It's going to go towards their contracts, basically, that they're going to get credit for a season under their contract, a season played, even if they don't play baseball. They have already agreed to prorate their salaries, which means that, like, if baseball starts late, they get a certain percentage. We're kind of like waiting for that. But come to find out, like, they are not in complete agreement as far as the salaries for the players, because the guy from the players union, Tony Clark, he's the players union chief. He told the Associated Press that the negotiation is over, that the players have already agreed to prorate their salaries. But the league does not agree, saying further adjustments would be necessary because in games without fans, the clubs would spend more on salaries than they would earn in revenue. And the union totally disputes that idea. So they're going to have some conflict there, and they're going to have to compromise as far as pay goes. I think that, I mean, Lenny brought this up to me last week, and I was surprised because I didn't think that baseball players agreed to not get paid at all. I mean, the bills still have to be paid. They still have a contract. I'm not. I mean, obviously, it's somewhere in the contract it says if you don't play, you don't get paid. But even players that get suspended, even like their contracts are still valid. It's not like football where you could just like fire somebody and then their contract doesn't matter anymore. Um, we don't know, but it says that further adjustments would be necessary because oh, I already said that. The extent to which either side is posturing is not known, but both surely grasp the backlash a financial conflict would generate at a time of great economic hardship. Both parties will need to build from the premise that the game's return in any form would leave them better off than a canceled season, knowing that going dark for 18 months would be the least financial, like, financially, it would be the worst thing you could do is to not have baseball at all. Um, so that's that. There's really not much new on that front, but I managed to talk about it for like the last 25 minutes. So obviously I found something interesting in that. Um, Verdugo, Alex Verdugo. Any Red Sox fans here? My the boys from Boston, the King Hap, the Beantown, the Taco. Verdugo says he's fully healthy. I read that news today, so I thought I'd put that in. It says that Verdugo said on Monday that he feels 100% physically and relayed that he has resumed hitting at the Red Sox spring training facility in Florida. Whenever the season starts, he's going to be ready to go. Now, that's interesting because Verdugo having back issues, I stayed far away from him, even though when the trade first happened, I was like, the person that benefits the most out of in fantasy is Verdugo. This guy is capable of hitting a lot of home runs. And last year for the Dodgers, he was good. He's still very young. But I thought Verdugo's the guy that's going to be he's going to gain the most value in fantasy. And then it's like, well, he's been hurt. It kind of came out that his back issues, and it's like, oh god, back issues. Think about back issues is that it's like they affect every aspect of hitting. It affects every aspect. People players are a lot less like ready to steal bases. They're a lot less likely to slide. They're a lot less likely to put their bodies on the line. Back is no bueno injury. It was a stress fracture in his back that kept him sidelined throughout spring training. The back issue looked like it would force him to the injured list to begin the season. Like a lot of players that were forced to the injured list to begin the season, not injured anymore. That hiatus that MLB is going through afforded him sufficient recovery time. So, whenever the Red Sox are cleared to resume full squad workouts, Verdugo's activity is going to be monitored carefully. But assuming that he avoids any further setbacks, he should get the green light to play when the season begins. So, what are your guys' thoughts on Verdugo? I'm sure he's sitting out there available in a lot of smaller leagues. And the thing is that if he's healthy, then what happens to Kevin Pillar? Kevin Pillar was excellent last year for the Red Sox, and like I said earlier, in Strat-o-matic, Kevin Pillar is an excellent player. He's very high price, so his defense is good, and he hits homers, he steals bases. What's going to happen to Kevin Pillar? That's that for that. It's 9:46. So let me just run over a couple of the hitters for Ola King Hap tonight, and also Bobby and Paulie will come on after King Hap. I look forward to the show at 7 p.m. tonight, right, King Hap? We love King Hap and Taco, kind of like Laverne and Shirley. Yes, I would sing right now. I used to sing that intro song of Laverne and Shirley every time it came on when I was like 8 years old or so. Yes, White Sox Al. I think that the owners are still going to get paid from the networks. I do believe. I think that the contract between the networks and Major League Baseball does not have anything to do with whether or not they play. So they're stuck in that contract. I think. I mean, I'm not really sure about anything right now, but I do believe that the owners will make money off of the networks, no matter what happens in baseball. Is it enough to cover the salaries of the baseball players? I don't know. I mean, if they don't have fans, how much money are they going to lose? Well, I think they make about 35 to 40% of their income from ballparks off of selling merchandise, concessions, tickets, and that. I mean, I think obviously teams like the Yankees would lose a lot more money if the fans were not allowed to show up. But what about all the season ticket holders who aren't taking their money back and leaving it, for incentives such as credit towards food or um better seats, like you get to choose better seats if you want, whatever the incentives are. I know that some teams are giving incentives for people to hold on to their season tickets. Don't try to get a refund. I wonder how I would be interested to find out how many people are actually getting their money back because they're afraid of the economic times that we're in right now. I would say that there's a lot of people out there that could afford season tickets earlier, and they don't feel that secure that they can afford season tickets at this point. It's like one of those things that it's an extra, you know. Um, I know King Hap with the Red Sox tickets that he has, he's keeping his money there. I know King Hap is still working. To all of you people out there still working, you realize who the essential workers are. They're grocery store attendants, they're butchers, they're mailman. The mailman was already an essential, but hospital workers, of course. What about the people that are making food and delivering food? The DoorDash guys, cheers to the DoorDash guys. I mean, I don't know what we would have done. There's a company called Crystal Produce that's on Long Island that is where we're getting our produce right now from. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to get milk, eggs, we wouldn't be able to get grapes, we wouldn't be able to get any vegetables or fruit because without going to the grocery store. And we're trying to avoid that like the plague, but it's very hard to get groceries here right now. And we found a place that was recommended by another lady that lives in the condos that we live in. She said Crystal Produce. Well, this company used to just distribute their produce to restaurants, and after the COVID thing happened, they decided that they would deliver to homes and that they would expand their business to free delivery for anybody that lives on the island. Anybody that lives on Long Island, they deliver for free. They get here in 2 days, and literally without them, I don't know what we would do to get our produce. So they're bringing produce, And like you can't get even groceries from Amazon, you can't get Whole Foods to deliver, you can't get any of the grocery stores because there's absolutely no appointments available. Um so companies like that, Crystal Produce, like I don't know what I would do without it. Um and the pharmaceutical workers, pretty much just whatever you do, like what about big bad boy? What about Beantown Bad Boy, who's like going and helping people that are in emergencies right now that have to have their plumbing fixed, or they have to have, their front door isn't locking, or whatever it is that people don't do on their own. It's like these people, they're risking their lives. They're risking for, us. They don't get paid any more than they did before. And for that, we are very grateful. And I hope to see that we can continue opening up our world again. And that would be lovely. So I'd like to just go over a couple of hitters on Strat-o-matic, even though I don't really feel like it at the moment. Let's just save that for another day. Besides, I'm not trying to give up on my secrets anyways, even though you can find this at Baseball HQ. If you want to go find it, you can find out who you should pick up and the reasons why, that their prices are the way that they are. King Hap is really Penny Marshall. Is that Laverne? Or no, yeah, that's Laverne, right? Phil Chappie's here. SP fan, nice to see you. Zelmo, of course, love it. Thank you for doing what you do. White Sox Al, love it. Mal, course, we have DK Loosh, Amazins, and everybody else that came and went. And that's about it. Have a great day, everybody. I don't know if Arnie's coming up. I don't think he is because he's not in the chat room. So that's it. I'm out.